I am a fan of seasonality. I am a fan of knowing that my December through February is usually the time for me to make the most money, and the fall time, September through maybe October-ish, has never been that kind to me. And going into August, is now August, is 7th, the day that I'm making this video. I went into August saying, I'm gonna have low expectations. I'm gonna, not do much. I'm not gonna maybe trade much if things aren't that great, and I don't really expect to make much. However, I'm making this video because we are 5 trading days into August, and I've already accumulated, made, I'm gonna knock on wood, I could give it back by the end of August, but in the first 5 trading days of August, I have made $50,000. So about 10K a day, so to speak. It hasn't been perfectly that way. In fact, I actually lost money the first day of August, but let's call it 50K in 5 days. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. My name is Kyle Williams. Let's dive into some of the best and worst trades that really got me to this point. So first one, Lumen. This was on the first trading day of August. I actually bought this breakout move, okay? It's only really I'll call it a 2 or 3 day breakout, but it did set a high at 344 on July 30th. And just 2 days later, we're actually breaking out of that level in pre-market. Sorry, not pre-market. We're right at those levels in pre-market. We go back into the chart here, right here, this little 3-day action right here. Yeah, come pre-market, we're trading right at the 340s. And again, the breakout's 344. Right? So keep that in mind. Know that this little top here is being set. That is the breakout level of 334. And so when we zoom in here, pre-market, we're trading right there, like I said. So again, with those levels right at pre-market here, I did not want to buy out the open. I wanted to make sure the breakout was actually going to happen, right? It's plenty of times where breakouts can look like they're going to be strong or look like they're going to happen and then not. So I am someone who likes to wait for the very last second. I want to get in right at the breakout level. And that's exactly what I did. So right on this very candle, when it broke 344, I filled about half size. I put it in 2 orders, try to buy 10,000 shares, 5,000 each. Okay, 5,000 shares orders gets us to 10,000. This move was so quick, I filled on one of them. Okay, so I only had half size, and as you can see how the breakout went, you never looked back. And so unfortunately, that order got kind of left in the dust, left on the sidelines, never to be filled. And so I only filled half size, okay? I did scale that out mostly into the $4 area. I think I sold a little bit more in 418s, 419s. And then on this crack, the company did put out a PR. And so when it cracked below this little double bottom, you'd call it, in the 370s, I sold the rest and locked in $2,500, okay? Or $2,600, give or take, somewhere in there. Unfortunately, again, it could have been double had I filled that, that size down here. But again, sometimes the best breakouts are so strong that happens. I didn't feel much as what I wanted because it was just so strong. There were that many more buyers in front of me that wanted to get in, and hence why it was one of those trades where I was never down, right? I would have cut the loss if it had a broke low a day here at like the 327 level or 320s. But didn't even need to see that scenario play out. It worked right away. It was beautiful. And of course, anyone who overstayed, it faded all the way back down, right? So that's the importance of locking in profits. Locked in $2,600 there. So a good start. However, this was the first day of August. I lost money. What else did I trade?
Ever dreamed of trading like one of the Clovers? Well, it all starts with the right broker. Clover Trading and Centerpoint Securities have teamed up to supercharge your trading experience. By joining Unlock the Power of CP Edge exclusively with Centerpoint. We're talking top-tier trading tools worth over $6,000, all at your fingertips. Get ahead with real-time scanners, cutting-edge news, and a tailor-made trading journal. Experience trading like never before with superior short inventory, personalized support, and interest on your idle funds. Plus, you can get competitive pricing that fits your trading style. Ready to elevate your trading game? Click the Clover Trading link in the description below to get exclusive deals with Centerpoint Securities. Now let's get back to the content.
I also took a trade on SERV. SERV was one, if we go over to the daily chart, it's been a really good runner, right? It started off with news that NVIDIA and Uber are invested in this company. It's nothing new. I think, in fact, they have been invested for quite some time. It's not like they just bought it yesterday, so to speak. Regardless, this was running up big. On this particular day, so this little wick candle where it saves, I was looking for a breakdown under this mid 14s level, right? We have a bottom on July 30th of 1459. We have another bottom of 1489. So I'm thinking in the mid to high 14s is a level. And of course, we're trading at, 1510. So right in that high 14s, low 15s is kind of that support it's been forming. And I was looking for a breakdown below that level. And eventually did sell off, and we'll talk about that next. But I was looking for a breakdown on this level and potentially holding overnight. However, once I did that, I realized, or I guess once I entered the trade, I had realized I didn't really want to be in anymore. Why? One, the overnight interest was insane. The overnight interest was like a 400, 500%. And so just what that basically means at that high is that if I'm holding it overnight for one night, I'm going to pay well over like a 1 to 1.5% of the stock's price. So if I'm short from, let's say 16, I'm going to pay 16 cents just to hold it overnight. Hypothetically. It's a little more complex the math than that, but that's basically the gist. And so it's like, I don't want to pay 16 cents overnight. Why, when I can just reshort it the next day, right? So eventually it led me to wanting to cut it. Unfortunately, I wanted to be picky though. I was in from 16 and I wanted to dip below 16 and get out with a small scratch profit, like it really mattered. I was trying to be fancy with it. I was trying to be smart with it and try to get out for a small profit. Ultimately, you can see here, it pretty much supported 16s like a champ right here, and then squeezed back. I ended up having to cut it over, I think 17 here, and lost like 3 or 4 grand. So that was unfortunate. That caused my first day of August to be down, down like $1,200, $1,300, whatever it was. It happens. Small red day though, that's acceptable, that's fine. Where it gets good, and this is where the streak happens now to then getting into 50K in profits, was the next serve trade. So the next serve trade, all this move, into the close, very strong. Actually, it looks like it's not going to break down in the low 15s, high 14s. Next day, it actually gapped down. I didn't trade it at all. In fact, I thought to myself, if it gaps down or breaks down without me, I won't be there. I'm not going to try to chase this weakness after, getting squeezed out into the close the previous day. However, once it started bottoming once, twice, 3 times on top of, right at the support from the previous days, again, we go back to the daily chart, this support level, right, is really starting to form, and it was really starting to form on this day. I thought to myself, if that level breaks, again, it's like the Lumen trade. It's almost a perfect breakdown, or it's a breakout, but just flipped, right? It's just a breakdown instead of a breakout. And so when we zoom into that day here, I shorted right into this breakdown move from 1530 all the way down to 15. And the great part was, if it works right away, like Lumen, it should have worked very quickly. And that's exactly what it did. And if it had come back and give me some choppy, BS action, I probably would have gotten out for a small loss, right? It's not what I want to see. I want to see it work right away. And that's exactly what it did. In fact, I have right? So I'm shorting that breakdown and it's moving right away. I'm covering down in sub 14, covered my last piece at the low 13s. And frankly, I thought it was going to go lower. I thought we were going to see 12s, but oddly, it actually didn't bounce. So I did avoid that bounce, which was great. But ultimately, I locked in 6,200 on this trade. So that was a good start to the next day on August, or the second day of August, which was August 2nd. What else happened that day? We also had a gap and crap. VSE gapped up, I believe, what was it? The previous close was around 240, gapped up to like 6, so well over 100%. A big gapper. I eventually got short into one of the lower high moves into weakness. That's typically how I like them to short them. I don't like just kind of shorting out the open or just randomly shorting. I'm pretty sure it was into this 560 breakdown here, right into that breakdown, right? And then typically I like to hold them most of the day. I like to see them fade most of the day. Obviously this one had a much bigger of a bounce, right? It actually had, a bounce midday right into VWAP. Actually, this was a good ad spot for those who maybe didn't get their full size. I think Huddy did. Huddy didn't get his full size in the morning, so then added on this bounce here. And the great part about it is that into the late day, it actually offered a pullback right back to the morning lows. And if you looked at that trade there, I covered the rest there and I locked in about $4,500. Second day of August, that was the 10K day with SERV and VSE. Going into this week, I'm filming this on August 7th, so we had August, 5th, 6th, and 7th. August 5th, we had the Japan currency carry trade scares over the weekend, right? The Nikkei was down 12% in one day. It just crazy stuff. So our markets, specifically the SPY and the QQQ NASDAQ, had a really sick pullback, right? And I'm talking about specifically this day on the 5th. Everything's gapping down huge, there's mass panic. But the reality is, in the short essence of it, is that people just had to change their money around. They had to move their leverage, they were over leveraged some ways, a couple margin calls happened, etc. Hence this selling. But once that selling's over, nothing goes straight up, nothing goes straight down. There's gonna be a bounce. And so I was looking at some of the most oversold tickers even before this move happened. And so one of them was ARM. ARM is in the AI kind of tech revolution space, a sympathy or another mover to NVIDIA in the AI chip space, right? And so this has already sold off well before any of these, these Japanese scares and the carry trade scares, from pretty much the 180s down to, sub 100. It's already massively sold off, and really just this last few days of sell-off has been from the overall market environment. And so I thought to myself, if the overall market's going to bounce, I envision after one of these being one of the strongest stocks in that environment, again, going from 80s to 180s in just a couple months, that there was going to be a bounce here. And so I did buy ARM around about 101. If we go into that trade, right, I did buy it around 101, and then I sold it into this strength here into the morning, right? Got long into this morning spike. I think I sold a bit at 105, and then the rest into 108, 109 here. Missed this move into the 1s, 11s, 112s, but it happens, right? I'm not going to be the time the top and time the bottom. I'm just there for the meat of the move, and thankfully I made over 7K on this one. And again, I think I have a picture. Let's just to show you the actual candles. Again, longed, sold a little bit, sold the rest into this move, missed the top, but by all means, I'm not going to complain about making $7 grand. That was great. I was very happy with that one. Again, I'm not someone to buy a large cap bounce move like this. The fact that I made any money on it, I think was great. Continuing, If we keep on moving, STRG, this one was a very unique one because they don't happen very often. If you've been trading a long time, if you've been following any of my YouTube videos on my own personal channel, all the way back to I think the very first one, I have talked about this particular pattern. Again, on the downside of this, I mean, this is called the OTC pump and dump, right? It's a very classic old school kind of pattern. It still does happen. Clearly, this is one of them. It just doesn't happen nearly as much as it once did. It happened dozens of times, every couple months, years ago, like 5-10 years ago, even probably more so, almost maybe a couple a week at the minimum. Now it's full 180. It's gone from like maybe there's 2 or 3 a whole entire year. So they still happen. They're still fun to be a part of, but by no means are they a scalable strategy anymore. In fact, volume's all low. Again, they weren't always trading 100K. Sometimes they were trading millions a day, not 100K a day. This one was very low volume. However, it's like nostalgic. I still like to be a part of them. I still like to watch them. I still like to profit off them. It may not be as much as I used to, but it is still a lot, or it's still something that adds to the bottom line. So this one in particular had very little borrows. I couldn't find many. I was able to get 1,000 shares in between the low sixes here. Specifically these 2 days was able to get short. Couldn't find borrows into these last few days up top, but then obviously this is how they traditionally end. It all dumps down in 80 to 90% a day. Next day it gapped down and I covered it all down here near 1. Ended up making, actually I think I covered half. Yeah, I covered half and like the 2s and then the rest of the half at like actually 60 or 50 cents down here. Ultimately gave me like a 130 average cover. And so locked in like 4,700. Somewhere in there, the 4 to 5K range. Couldn't even find more shares than 1K. That's kind of all I could find. And so 5K is all I could make. Never going to knock 5K. Would I have liked it to have been 5 or 10, 15, 20? Sure. But it just didn't happen. Again, no borrows popped up. And so there's nothing I can do to control that. It's how it is. So yeah, that was a good addition. And again, to show you the trades. So for final, as we move on to the next one, boom. This is just me covering right on that day down at 50 cents. So pretty sweet. Again, still fun to trade them, but they're just not what they used to be, unfortunately. Now, this was the big mother of all trades. This is the one that adds the most to my P&L is SAVA. We'll go over the trade I just took this morning on this one, but the big day where I made 18K was actually yesterday on the 6th of August. Again, if you've watched enough of my style of trading, I love overextended runners. This one being a perfect one of that, going from pretty much 10, 11 all the way up to about 42 come August, 5th? So Monday? And naturally at some point there's going to be a reversal, right? This thing can't go up forever, right? Nothing goes straight up all the time. Nothing goes straight down all the time. Eventually there is kind of a reversion to the mean kind of action. And so naturally, after a huge blow off move, the biggest range candle of the day, I'm looking for hopefully the next day to be the end, right? It's not always that picture perfect, but naturally, we gap down, pulled back, squeezed, gap down, squeezed. This time we're actually gapping up. Again, we're gapping up into this resistance, right? If we go to the intraday, we're gapping up right into that previous levels, right? If we go back, right? Huge move, huge pullback to create that wick on the daily candle. And then now we're gapping right into these levels, right? All this resistance, all this selling that happened, the pullback, we gap up right into it. And so naturally it fails right away. The first red day kind of going red and holding red, right? The red green level was actually like right here at around 35. It pulled back and then actually tested that level one more time, only to fail and then have the real true first red day. So after this failure, there was true confirmation. And if you look at my trade, that's kind of when I actually added back some size, because I did cover a little bit into the first pull right here, right? If you zoom in, right, got short on that gap up into resistance, got short as it went red, downsized a little bit, not much, like maybe a sixth of my position. But then once it failed there, I added that size back for kind of confirmation. And in hindsight, I actually wish I probably should have added more, but again, it just is what it is. Only added back what I covered. And then, the rest was history. Got a good panic into 30, covered a little bit there. It bounced back here. This made me a little bit antsy. It made me question whether it was going to go lower than this original low. Thankfully, I was patient. Never another great sell-off, and then covered the rest at high 28s, low 29s for about 18K in profits. Yes, it did bounce one more time and then go lower, but I'm not going to complain. Like I said, I don't get the top, I don't get the bottom. I just take the range, the meat of the move. And so yeah, 18K there. That was the biggest the biggest gain of this kind of sequence of trades. And it was a great first red day. This was, I look back at this chart and I'm very happy about it. Next great trade was VBIV, right? VBIV was a sticker that gapping up and running. I think it was up over 200% at one point. But the reality is they're getting delisted tomorrow. Like August 8th, they're getting delisted at the OTC market. They're like bankrupt if I'm not mistaken. So when it was running huge, I thought to myself, this makes no sense. This run is not going to last. If anything, it's going to get crushed very quickly. Now, unfortunately, I did not hold it overnight. That would have been a sick trade to be covering it now at 7 cents, but I did short it up here at around 19 cents. Up in here in this chop, once it was kind of really putting in this lower low and this high, lower high, the fading began. And I did cover it into mainly after hours into this wash into the 13s and 12s. Again, made about 5K, but obviously it would have been much more. It would have been probably maybe closer to 10K had I covered it down in the 17s. But yeah, to show you the trades of what happened here, right here, getting short, did get stopped out on that move, right? I kind of chased weakness into this move here, right? If we look at that candle, did think this wick down was gonna, or this, at the time it wasn't a wick down, I chased it, then it wicked, and then it stuffed, and I covered half my size. I covered over this like 20-cent range, 21-cent range, covered half my size, but then it stuffed, so then I re-added the half size, and then the rest was history, right? So a little bit unfortunate, I only lost $1,000 on that cut, and then made it all back and then still locked in 5K as I covered the rest into after hours here in the, again, 13s and 12s. So a really good one. One of those weird ones where, I just don't understand why it spiked the way it did. I mean, literally, like they're getting delisted. I have no idea why this happened because it just creates a huge inefficiency. But again, that's an efficiency I want to profit off of. So last couple trades, this is where the biggest loss of the sequence came in. Back to Lumen. If we go back to LUMN, this is where things get tricky because if you go back to the daily chart, right, you'll notice this run happened, that, fake out breakout happened, it faded, it pulled back a bit, and then we got this big squeeze. I mean, massive. It goes up, it gaps up to 4, runs up to 5, and then in after hours this day, you can't see it until we go to the intraday, ran up into these 7s. That's why it's opening up in these 6s and 7s here. I kind of got chopped up trying to short it, some of the spikes. And I'll show you the trades, but I just want to go over the chart first. This was the first one, right? Kind of a nice real parabolic move. Again, and I say that because if you look back, right, if we talk about the breakout that happened, right, this is a good parabolic, right? This is a very nice spike and a very good pullback. So I have to assume or believe that next time it spikes like this, it's going to have a good pullback, at least from its characteristics, right? And that's just not the case. That's just not what happened, right? If we just go back into what happened today, or start yesterday, we're getting this similar move. And so I actually start shorting in the 490s, risking off 5. It looked good for a little bit, but then it came back and then absorbed again, and then it squeezed out one more time. Unfortunately, I did cut the loss right into kind of the 490s, like right into $5, only to have that be the top, and then it faded. I never reshorted this on this move particularly. And so took a small loss like $1,200, $1,500, no big deal. Where the bigger part of the loss comes in is then when I shorted the after hours move, right? This was the spike we just talked about. It consolidated sideways, and then in after hours, just ripped faces off, right? Went from 5 almost all the way to 10, specifically 9s. And when that's happening, I'm starting to get short up in here, thinking like we're due for a pullback. And as you can see, it just didn't happen. In fact, my last piece, I covered over the highs at like the low 9s as I thought it was going to go higher. And then of course, I think that was me and a bunch of other short sellers did the same thing because once every short seller was out, once kind of, I think enough people gave up, the actual pullback ensued and it happened, right? This pullback, I wanted it to happen here. Instead, it happened here, right? So if we look at the actual trades, I'm trying to short both parabolics in the morning and in the afternoon, and it results in, again, you can't even tell, but this is a small loss here, and then you just see the chop, right? Tried to cover some, ended up covering again, reshorting, and then covering one more time into that wick to the highs. Ultimately, took the picture before it even faded, but now you see the aftermath of that. It just faded beautifully. Haven't traded it today. It's been kind of quite choppy back and forth in this range. If I had to look at the daily chart, I would imagine some kind of solid red day is coming. This here is just a red candle. It's not a red day. It is still up, 35% of the day. Clearly, it's at 670 from 5. So yeah, we'll see. I think it's going to be lower here by the time you probably watch this video, but you never know. It's been a really good runner, awesome runner. Good. Again, from pretty much the 1s to 7. Pretty sick. Last trade, and you guys saw it, SAVA, right? I decided to want to short it for a second red day. Why did I do that? Well, if you go back to all of the days and the runs that SAVA has had, right? Let's just go back to some of them. Big red day, second red day. If we keep going, we scroll a little more, okay? Right here, big red day, second red day, small red day, big red day. The point is you see 2 red days occur after there's a solid multi-day run up that's extended, okay? So going back, like we talked about first on the red day that I shorted yesterday, this is still an overextended stop. Even at 30, this thing is still up from 10. I have to assume the odds are still in my favor for a second red day. And so that's exactly what I did out the open. Right, out the open this morning. This actual trade was live on Good Morning Nasdaq. At least the entries were, the exits were not. It didn't last that long, but we did spike perfectly into red green. That's kind of where my risk was. Originally, I was going to risk 31, and that's exactly what I did on the starter position. Right, on these kind of first few entries, I was risking 31, kind of above previous day's bounces, right up in here. But once it failed red green, kind of very similar to what I did the day prior, right, where it failed this bounce here, like I talked about. Once it failed that again, but this morning, that's when I added again on this piece and then removed my risk to red green, had to ride through some choppiness, one last bounce here, and finally it flushed. I covered the rest here in the kind of 26s, ultimately locking in $8,000. So another 8,000 on top of the 18 that I made yesterday and haven't touched it since. And thankfully, because it's actually squeezing as we speak back to 30. Pretty impressive. So it may not look like a strong red day, day 2. But in fact, all I needed was to catch the morning action, and that's all I needed, right? I don't need to be here to make or lose money. I only needed to be here. That's the beauty of it all. So yeah, that's all of the trades that have really contributed to this 50K in 5 days kind of action. Again, like I said, I can totally just stop trading and have August be one of the best, but I'm you know me, I'm a little bit degenerate. We want to trade. I enjoy trading. So we're going to see what the rest of August has to offer. Feel free to, again, stay on top of things. Maybe we'll do a little secondary update on how August went. I know certainly I'll do a monthly recap, so that will be out as well. But anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you like more trade recap videos like these, feel free to leave a comment below on what you liked most about it. Anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.